See, I did decide to sneak up on y'all. Y'all ain't even know it. You know what I'm saying? Like, pulled up real quick, like, you know what I'm saying? Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, man, everybody take a quick stretch. Loosen up. Tell y'all a quick little story real quick, you know what I'm saying? So we get this thing started off real nice. Real Percy style. Alright, so growing up as a teenager, right? You know, adolescence, kind of hard-headed, naive, see the world from a very childish viewpoint. And like I said, for me, most of my teenage years was, we'll say roughly the 2000s, you know what I'm saying, around that 2000 era. Now, even though I was, you know, young, dumb, doing a bunch of dumb shit, like pushing the boundaries, this, that, and third, just as any normal teenager would, right? It's 2 months within that period, right, of my development that ingrained in my mind. And like I say, as a teenager, you see it from the lens of a teenager, as an adolescent, as a kid. Going back to those two events as an adult, being able to experience some success, experience some failure, some setback, having some good things, having some not so good things, dealing with some issues, basically life, you know, being able to have a few years of experience in this life thing took me back to those same events from a different perspective. And whoa, like, I mean, the world is a fucked up place. So those two events that I'm referring to, right, I'm gonna say the months and see if they trigger anything. September and August, like, you know what I mean? Between my ages of, I say, 13 to 16, 17-ish, right? It's two major things that happened that, I mean, changed the fucking world. But, you know, as a teenager experiencing it, you don't really got a good grasp on the severity of it, like, you know what I'm saying, the significance, the weight, the gravity of it. So I went back to him, and actually what kind of triggered this one as like the start episode is I was watching a trailer for on some shit for Apple TV called like 5 Days. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, whoa. So I think that right there kind of buried the lead. But anyway, the two events that I'm referring to is August 2005 was Hurricane Katrina. Wow, and that shit, like, I mean, that alone, like, shit lets you know, boom. And like, that, even that, I was like, I don't even know if I could put that in the same ballpark as September the 11th, 2001. But, I mean, full disclosure, we do want to say that our hearts do sincerely go out to all those who lost someone, lost their lives, lost loved ones. Like, I mean, those were some very horrific events, and a lot of destruction, a lot of lives were changed forever. So I do want to get that out on a serious note, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is no disrespect, no damage intended. Like, we just basically debating the events themselves. Okay, so now we got that disclosure out the way. This edition of Versus to open up season 3, Hurricane Katrina in August of 2005 versus September 11th, 2001. But just to finish up what I was saying about that trailer, they did like a show, basically like the actual version of what like the hospitals and stuff like went through for Katrina. And then I seen something on one of those sites. Well, they can't really do like rated R TVMA like movie of 9/11 because it's a lot of national secrets and stuff that would get revealed. A lot of families and stuff would have to, so that's probably going to be like 20, 30, 40 years down the road. But just for the purposes of this discussion, I want y'all to think about that. See you on the other side.
Something wrong. You don't know what it is, but it's there.
Nah, I definitely agree with that shit. Damn, Beretta, man. Fuck. Bro, I know you got bicycle, man, but you gotta think sometimes. Shit. Some of this shit don't even call for. Bro, I was talking to my suckers. I'm the only one who listen to me. Remember who the realest nigga in it.
Now the motherfucking eye opener, like I said, 2005. I know a lot of y'all probably hearing a lot of songs. Rest in peace to '05, boom boom. '05, I think I had to be about 16ish. Yeah, like I think 16, 17ish. Going to, that's when me and mom was bumping heads and Capitola was no more, and 1055 forever begun, basically, you know what I'm saying? But long story short, 2005, I was basically finding myself somewhat, so I really didn't take into detail. I mean, you couldn't help but hear about Hurricane Katrina. I mean, it's major. I know it's August. I mean, school was just started. I mean, it was a big hurricane. There was a lot of flooding. I mean, it's Florida. Like, we hear about a lot of places that have severe hurricanes. But didn't know the nuances and details, you know what I'm saying? Because one thing about it is when you, like, get the news, especially as a kid, you know what I mean? It's like your view of the world is somewhat limited. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like you don't really know what fucked up is, cause your concept of fucked up hadn't really begun yet. You get what I mean? It's like if you like 15, 16, you might start seeing little shit that's fucked up, but by the time you hit 28, 29, 30, you done seen fucked up. Like, you know what fucked up and how ugly and fucked up shit can get. Like, you really don't know at that age. That's why I say you kind of naive. Like, you know what I'm saying? The world's a playground. You know what I'm saying? You think everything's gonna be okay, everything's cool. But looking back at that shit, like, with a more mature eye, that shit was fucked up. Now, I'm gonna tell you what's fucked up about it, like, as I revisited that. It's not so much as it's a hurricane. I mean, New Orleans, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, especially Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Texas, Virginia, are somewhat familiar, especially the coastline, are somewhat familiar with hurricanes, this, that, you see them coming. Now, what was different about that shit, right, is the rapid intensification for one, and the fact that New Orleans already sit below sea level. Now, that shit is like the mouth of the fucking Mississippi. Like, if you go down there to that delta. So, it's a whole bunch of swampy, wet, watery shit going on already. Like, to the point that they got these levee systems, you know what I mean? Like, they had to build a man-made structure to deal with their watery situation. Like, you know, as a Florida resident, you know, we're very familiar with those swampy, have land, have water sediment areas. I mean, it's just this region of the country. Now, the levees was pretty much made to keep the water out, keep seawater out from certain regions from getting into the city, because obviously it sits below fucking sea level. I mean, it don't take a mathematician to realize that it's something lower than sea level. Sea level's here. If it can do it, it's gonna anyway. But Hurricane Katrina had rapid intensification. That shit turned into a category 5, and the way that shit hit, like from what I was understanding, is like, you know, because all the hurricanes got the counterclockwise winds going on, right? So it's pushing the storm surge, like, basically into the bowl that's New Orleans, you know what I'm saying? Now, what's fucked up about that is the levees. I mean, I don't know enough about politics to say what they were supposed to do, this, that, and third. But I, just from my little 2 cents, don't think that they was designed for that type of shit. When I say storm surge, I'm talking about the water in front of the fucking hurricane. I ain't even talking, we ain't even got to the winds and all that fucking thunderstorm shit. I ain't even got to that part yet. We just talking about the fucking ocean itself, because that shit started getting shallower and shallower the closer you get to land, right? Now, I don't know if y'all familiar with like boiling water, right? But the lesser amount of water you have, the quicker it is to get hot. So as that shit gets shallower and shallower, right, it's warmer. So rapid intensification, that shit hit. I mean, it was massive storm. So the damage was severe. The levees broke, and that just basically brought the Gulf of Mexico into New Orleans. Okay, that in itself is tragic. The winds tearing up structures. You got basically the fucking seawater is now down fucking Main Street. You feel me? Now, with that being said, that's the storm. Storm already big as fuck. Probably lasted a whole day, for like some hours, long hours, just dealing with that shit. Now, the aftermath is what really made Hurricane Katrina, like, cause as I got the details, we're not talking about your lights off, the power's out, it's hot, you inconvenienced. Yeah, right, okay, so that in this situation would have been a slice of paradise. We talking about you got to sit on your roof, like you in a 2-story house, right? But even on your 2nd-story floor, like it's fucking full of water. Not only that, right? It's bodies and shit floating. Like, I didn't know all of that at the time, right? And then on top of that, right, the rescue efforts didn't seem like they was coming in a very efficient manner. You got a lot of people who could, you know what I'm saying, pack into like the Superdome at the time, right? But it's a lot of people who couldn't even make it there. I mean, they find these people, they getting to these people on helicopters and boats. We talking about down the middle of the street, like down the middle of the city now. Now, imagine that, not for a day, not for 2 days, but for like a significant period of time. Could you imagine, like, not having fresh water, like, not having just, like, perishables, medicine, fucking, like, food to eat? That shit started getting lawless, man. And it was like, it was so many people displaced, so many, like, think about this. It's 2023. And to this day, there are still parts that haven't recovered from Hurricane Katrina. I mean, that shit was wind, that shit was storm surge, that shit was rain, that shit was structural damage, that shit was flooding on a significant scale, that shit was multiple dead bodies, like it was animals and shit, all type of disease floating in the water. And then on top of all of that, it's total anarchy, it's total chaos, because the same law enforcement that's supposed to keep law and order, they dealing with a lot of the same fucking struggles. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you need government assistance. You need FEMA. You need that federal, that's what they fucking there for. But I honestly think that they saw that shit as like, okay, a regular storm, just a regular disaster. They ain't really get down there and to see really what time it was. Cause like, I mean, storms hit the country every year, right? But it ain't every year you hear like Katrina. Now, I will say this as far as for like a flurry, like that Michael, that Hurricane Michael, that shit was major. Like that shit had Tallahassee and Monticello like scared as fuck by that shit. That shit took a slight turn, but yeah, my heart's go out to Panama City, like they took the brunt of that. But the point is, like, we have had significant hurricanes, but something about Katrina like stood out. That shit did like unprecedented danger. And when I seen the way they structured like the docuseries that they got, and like where they actually show like what that shit looked like, oh man, like you talking about like some scary shit. Like that's some scary shit, bro. I'm talking about you got water, you got wind, you got shit flying all around, and then on top of that, even if you survive all of that, you got motherfuckers robbing, shooting, and killing, cause like not because they trying to get money, cause they trying to get rich. the motherfuckers hungry. They just trying to eat. Could you imagine that? You ain't got to be a big time rich drug dealer or something like that and you worried about somebody robbing you. You might fuck around and get a can of noodles and have to worry about somebody robbing you. Like, that shit was very, very chaotic. And that shit, the duration of that shit was a while. It took a while for them to kind of get New Orleans back to, you know, some type of order and some type of structure. So putting all of that into account, especially now with a more mature mind, it was like, whoa. Yeah, I had to really, really get after a whole lot more respect than what I did. Now, we're finna talk about that other thing, like that. It's like even hard to even like bring it up, especially now from a mature viewpoint, and that is that September 11th. Now I want to think I had to be about 13ish. Yeah, 13. Because my birthday would have been that December, so I would have been, yeah, 13. Well, I was 13, finna be 14. Anyway, I know I was in the 8th grade. Like, it was just starting 8th grade. My first period was from a science teacher I had named Miss Rose. And, it was middle school, yeah, 8th grade, Miss Rose. I remember leaving Miss Rose's class. She had taught me about something I was supposed to do and ain't do. Something basically busting at me type shit. So I was kind of held back a little bit as far as like when all the shit was going on. I didn't know, like, I remember walking into my second period class, which is Miss Harvey. She taught math. It had to be about maybe, I think it was the second period started at 8:50, something like that. Something like that. I just know I walked in there a little bit late. You know what I'm saying? So as I'm walking in, like, everybody in the classroom was like watching the TV. I mean, like I said, I'm fucking 13, you know, I'm fucking in the hallways, goofing off, bullshit, man. Walking in, I'm not really paying attention to what everybody's looking at, right? But I see the TVs on. Now, at that time, and even now, I hated fucking math. Like, math is the subject you can't bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like, science, reading, language arts, creative writing, all that shit, I felt like I don't really have to, like, study that shit or pay attention to that shit. It's just whenever they put a fucking assignment or something in front of me, I just, you know, do some shit on the fly and it'll be enough to, you know what I'm saying, get that shit out the way type shit. Math, no. It's like 2 plus 2 is 4. Ain't no other answer other than 4. You know what I'm saying? Motherfucker tell you to like write a book report about fucking a big historical event. I mean, your delivery and just your level of details and just the way you can like articulate yourself can really save you from doing a lot of legwork. I'm saying all of that to say I hated math. So I'm walking in noticing the TV on, and because the TV on, I'm already in an elated mood. Cause I'm like, oh, okay, movie day. We ain't got to do no fucking work. Like type shit. Like, I'm 13, that's what I'm thinking, you know what I'm saying? So regardless of whatever the fuck she finna teach or whatever lecture, whatever got to do with whatever, that shit irrelevant cause TV on. Like, that's just how, you know, I thought back then. So by the time I sat down and trying to see what everybody was at, and I promise to God, no word of lie. And like I said, our hearts go out to all of the people that lost people and people that have been affected by those events. Cause like I said, I mean, I couldn't even imagine. I mean, like I said, I was 13. I mean, and I'm seeing it on TV. I'm at such a distance from this event to once the relevance of it hit me, it was like, it floored me. I'm just like retelling the events as they happen, you know what I'm saying? Like, no judgment. I'm just, you know, retelling the story. Anyway, I look up and I promise to God, like, the very first thing I see as I look up was the second plane, like, hitting the bit. I remember, think about it, it's 13 years old. You're walking into a math class that you don't want to do no fucking math, like, because you actually have to do some work. I mean, you like, okay, boom, what we watching on TV? And if that's the first thing you see, I promise you, rest in peace to everyone that lost, you know what I'm saying? But I'm not trying to make no type of fun of it or nothing. I mean, like I said, it's not no disrespect or nothing in that light. But the very first thought that hit me when I saw that is I thought it was a brand new movie. I thought it was a brand new movie, like, and the thought, the idea never like crossed my mind. Like those big tall skyscrapers. I mean, I used to like be enamored. Like I was like, damn, I always want to go to New York to see that shit. Like for myself, like all those tall buildings. But it never even crossed my mind. Never even a thought. Like what happens if a big airplane hit that? You know what I mean? Like, and then the fire department. Like, I mean, I'm 13 now, and I'm thinking, how do you put that out? Like, what ladder is gonna reach that? You know what I mean? It's like, what helicopter is gonna be able to drop enough water to put that? Like, those are the thoughts that go through my mind. So, as I'm seeing this, like I said, this explosion, my reaction at the time, like I say, don't judge me, I was 13. My reaction at the time was like, ooh, like, when this come out, like, kind of excited. And then by this time, I just, like, realized, like, everybody that's looking up, they're looking up in horror. And, like, my father, you know what I'm saying, God bless her heart, you know what I'm saying, like, I seriously, like, the shit was so crazy because she was like 38 hot. Christopher, get out of my classroom! Like, get out! Like, and thinking back on it now, I mean, I could imagine because I mean that shit probably was like the very most, like, most senseless, thoughtless thing that possibly could have been, you know, like did. And I apologize sincerely for that. But I'm just retelling the story as it happened, you know. And like I said, she kicked me out. And I'm like, what? You know what I'm saying? But as I'm looking around, I'm seeing like everybody's severity, right? And when I knew that it was like for real, and as they took me to office, I'm thinking, damn, you know what I'm saying? I done started off the year already getting in trouble, you know what I'm saying? Because shit, by the time I was playing football and shit, so, you know, I was kind of hanging out a little bit. So, you know, kind of start pushing the limits. So I hadn't been in trouble a couple of times by some, so I didn't want that to you know get me in trouble because that was something that I'm like what did I do wrong type. But when I knew it was serious is instead of them like suspending me or like writing me up, what ended up happening was they called my mama. Well, my mama actually called somebody. They got in touch with her. And they took me out of school, and a couple other people left school. And the reason why is because at the time, Jeb Bush was the governor, and he was in Tallahassee. And I'm like, well, what the fuck is that guy? Either way, I don't care. I ain't got to go to school, and I ain't in trouble. Cool. But then after I got back over here to my grandma's house, sitting right here in the house, every channel. Like, back then, I used to be fucked up by BET. I used to be fucked up by, what else that was? Fox. Like, you know what I'm saying? Every channel I turned, that's all you see. Then it hit me that that was real. And it wasn't like one plane. It was two planes. It was three planes. And then I was like, whoa. So that was at 13. Now, looking back at it, like now from a mature standpoint, it was hard to even find anything to even put in the same ballpark. The closest thing that could even be mentioned with it, and it took that trailer for the 5 days for me to even consider it in that ballpark, was Hurricane Katrina. Because to sit there and think about, first of all, the skyscraper. I mean, the tallest building that I grew up around familiar with is the Capitol building, you know, in Tallahassee. And I want to think that shit by, I could be wrong. I know I went to the top of it like as a jit, but I don't remember the detail. I want to think it was like 30 stories, 40 stories, maybe. And that motherfucker tall. You know what I'm saying? To me, that shit was tall. You feel me? To find out these twin towers was 110 stories, and the yard that we got out here now is an acre. The whole square was an acre. Like, they sat on acres. Like, so these are massive fucking buildings. I forgot what year it was, but we did end up going to Las Vegas with the 100 Black Men of America. My first time riding on the plane. And I remember the size of a plane, like a big ass plane. People don't take into account how big those planes are. But what made that interesting is the first plane was a commercial jumbo jet, right? But because a lot of people didn't see the first plane hit, they assumed that it was a small plane just because of the size of the building. Like, to me, that made a whole lot more significance as I was older. Cause it was like, think about how big that building is to make them think that that big commercial jumbo jet was a little plane. Now, that's one aspect of it. Now, the other thing that, and even to this day right now at 35, it blows my mind and baffles me, is that the majority of the people within the building didn't know a plane hit it. Like, whoa. Like, to me, that blows me. Like, because I can't think of ever being in a building that big that something like that could happen and you not, you know what I mean? But because, New York is built up instead of like wide, you know what I mean? It was several cases where information just wasn't available because a lot of the communications was within the towers, and it makes sense because they was like really, really high up. So that was one thing. But the events as they unfolded, that was one of the days to where you could not say it can't get any worse. Because it seemed like at every single junction, like, it got worse and worse. Like, I was able to replay the summary of the whole thing, like, as I was older, as from a more adult frame. One plane you hear crashing to the World Trade Center. Oh, man, that by itself is gonna, like, change your whole day. Your whole day is like, whatever you was doing that day, you're not doing that no more. You know what I mean? Like, whoa, what? You know what I mean? Dang, that's got to be like, how does that accident happen? Like, who fell asleep to make that accident happen? But that's how you was thinking, you know what I'm saying? Because you're thinking it's an accident. Now, the second one was the scary one, because it's like, they trying, and then it's like, whoa. And then you're trying to ground all the airplanes because now you don't know. You know what I mean? You don't know for everybody from scared. This shit has never happened before. You know what I mean? It's like, whoa, like, who's doing what? Then when you heard about the Pentagon, like, that's the military shit. Like, that's why I was thinking, like, that's the military shit. Like, that's where, like, the army and the soldiers and shit at. And they did that. Whoa. You know what I mean? So, all in all, it's like, I couldn't imagine being in one of those high up positions dealing with that shit. Like, the guy that got to deal with, like, the planes, the people that's working within, like, the buildings, the people that's working around the buildings, the police, the firefighters. Like, can you imagine? Like, that's your job as a firefighter. You fight fires. And you get that call. It was the guy. I can't remember his first name, but I know his last name is Pfeiffer. I think those the ones that was like one of the first ones like that. It's like they saw it. They was filming a documentary. Like, they was fixing a gas leak or something like that. And they heard, they look up. And that gave me perspective. Because they was on the street level, right? And when you seen it, it still looked like it was in the sky. Like, for a plane to hit a building, in your mind, you're thinking the plane crashes. Like, because the building obviously is on the ground. But it wasn't like that. It's like, the building is up in the sky with the plane. So in my mind, the person I was thinking, how does the firefighter deal with that? You know what I'm saying? Because you're used to it, like it hits the ground, it's flames, firefighters come and put the fire out. But what if it's way? And so that's why I said, man, that really changed a lot, like for me, like the perspectives. So all in all, and like I said, I know this is one of those really like controversial, one of them, but we just for the thought, for the conversation and the education purposes, the more both of them, I mean, you really can't like compare the devastation of both, but being as though in versus in the series the way we do it is the fear factor was tremendous in both, but they do have some similarities, they do have some differences. Reason why I say they have some similarities, one common denominator was George Bush. You can say what you want to say about George Bush. You can say what you want to say about how he got elected. You know what I mean? I learned a lot about that shit as I got older. Doesn't matter. It happened. You know what I'm saying? He definitely, I feel, in my opinion, my humble opinion, I'm not a politician, don't know how that shit works, but in my opinion, I think he definitely dropped the ball with Hurricane Katrina. Like, he definitely was caught, like, napping. But as far as September 11th, I think he did, I mean, I don't see what wrong he did. You know what I mean? It's like, if I'm the president, he had just really took office because Bill Clinton had the 90s thing. The whole 90s pretty much him. He had 2 terms. So that 2000, I think he was just not really getting inaugurated. So he really wasn't like deep into his presidency. And that happened. You know what I'm saying? Come to find out, they had to be hearing chirps about being lying way back and been in Bill Clinton presidency. But the world was too busy hearing about him getting his dick sucked from Monica Lewinsky. And I get it, you know what I mean? Because at that time, you don't know fucked up. You don't know how ugly it is. So if you a news reporter, you got this guy way over here in Afghanistan talking about fuck America and he want to kill Americans. And then on this side, you got the president of the United States fucking bitches and getting his dick sucked and lying about it. Like, which one is more like juicier? They gonna go with the sensation story, but the one that is the most relevant, the most important, is this guy over here talking about he gonna kill Americans. Like, think about that. Like, this shit happened. Like, both like pieces of news were there and readily available. Dude did a fucking interview with I think it was CNN or something. They went to the caves of Tora Bora. Bruh sat in a fucking cave, Indian style, with some shit on, laughing, talking about, yeah, you're gonna see him in the coming days, God, like all kind of shit. And I was flabbergasted because it's like nowadays, if you say some shit like that, I believe the CIA, the Secret Service, all of they got so much information now. You say the wrong shit about the wrong shit at the wrong time, somebody coming in your door tonight. Like, you was not gonna get a chance to like nowadays, cause now they woke. But before September 11th, like they wasn't. You know what I mean? But as far as George Bush, I mean, a lot of people was trying to say conspiracy, and I'm not gonna go into that because that's a whole nother topic. But just from because like I said, I'm not a politician. I don't know how foreign affairs work. I just know life as far as my little 35 years of experience. What I seen from the situation was they didn't take it seriously. They like, man, you know what I'm saying? And they sat back and they like cooked up a plan. It's hard to deal with an enemy who uses death for their diabolical scheme. Because in most wars, you kill the enemy. You know what I mean? Now, if the enemy is already like ready to die, then you got to change your strategy. But I mean, it's one thing to do like with Pearl Harbor, like to bomb like an army base or a military base. These were just regular everyday people. That's why I feel like, whoa, so he sitting in the classroom, a lot of people saying could be conspiracy, like he knew this, that, and the third. I don't see the gain. They said that it would have made it more easier for people to vote for whatever, to let him go to war. Listen, let me tell you one thing about America. Regardless of what they tell you they doing, they gonna do what they want to do anyway. So the point I'm saying is, I don't think that they would have to go through that and put on that big of a show if they was trying to conspire to do something. Now, I do believe that they would rather you think it's a conspiracy versus you realizing that they really got caught with their pants down by some guys from way over there that don't look like they have the muscle, the money, or the sophistication to deal with a superpower like America. Like, they would rather you think that it was all planned and all of that versus you realizing that, dang, like, y'all really, really, really dropped the ball. Like, y'all really dropped the ball because the information was there. Now, I feel like if that same situation would have happened like right now, but these times, it never would happen. You never would even hear about it. Before Bin Laden released that goddamn interview, he would be dead. They be talking about Putin and the nuclear pushing button. It's way too many billionaires and probably some trillionaires or some shit that, because they ain't gonna tell you everything, but the military, dumb people is not finna let somebody in another country dictate the whole world. If you think you finna nuke the world and you finna like destroy all this shit, I promise you, for everything that they tell you, there's a million more things that they don't tell you. I'm saying all of that to say this. I don't fault Bush for the 9/11. I do fault with Katrina. And as far as Saddam Hussein, of course it didn't have nothing to do with 9/11. But it's like this. If you really listen to what he was saying that I want Bin Laden. But we not going to like distinguish the terrorists from the people who helped the terrorists. Now the gray slippery slope in that is who's determined who's helping them. Like, you know what I'm saying? To me, that's more of a observational thing. Like, you know what I mean? That's opinionated. That's not based on fact. So if you George Bush and if you can't get Bin Laden, everybody over there felt gang, look, man, everybody who fuck with Bin Laden, if you look like you cool with him, if I see a picture of you like at this dude barbecue or some shit, if you ain't trying to give him up, if you ain't trying to tell me where he at, I'm putting a pistol to your head. Like that's how that shit was. And I mean, he's a little hot-headed, but everybody, I mean, bro, did you see what they did? Somebody has to pay for that shit. Now, September 11th was one very, very, very dark day, but best believe, like, I think America bombed that shit for like years, like a year, like, I mean, so it definitely was that. But Hurricane Katrina, like I said, I mean, that was the only thing that I could even put within that ballpark. You know what I mean? And then when I saw the way that they was telling it like from the actual like motion picture standpoint, and it gets you a chance to be there. And I'm trying to put in my mind, that's where the whole versus idea came from, is which one versus which one. Like, I mean, you know, you don't want to be in either one of them, but both things happen. And for me, to summarize all of this, I'm going to be honest. Right? I'm going to be honest. On September 11th, far as I know, most of the people who made it to the hospitals, they received a lot of injuries, a lot of things that's gonna be with them for life. But most of the ones who made it to the hospital survived it. Like, most of the ones who made it out the buildings, like, survived it. It was a very, 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 very bad day. A lot of people died. I think it was like the most deaths ever. But the next day, I want to think they rescued a few people from the rubble. And I think by the day after that, like they had already rescued like all the survivors. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because from 8, I think what 40 something that morning till like a couple of days, everybody that was going to be dead had died. Everybody that was going to survive had survived. But Hurricane Katrina, the hurricane itself was just the first stage. The people that was in the hospitals, like from the way I was seeing, like it was just as dangerous there as getting to the rescuers. Could you imagine? Like you calling the ambulance, you calling the people to get you to the hospital, but the hospitals is just as dangerous as where you was. They flooded out too. They can't get no resources either. Like they was even saying that a lot of them had resorted to killing the patients so they wouldn't suffer. I mean, could you like? It's just like think about it now. I mean, it's like in the duration. The reason I brought that up about September 11th and like the next day and the survivors and the deaths like right then is because the duration. The Hurricane Katrina saga that lasted for months. Like the lawlessness is like it's equivalent to like the other show about the plane crash versus the boat sinking. You know what I mean? It's like you have a greater chance of surviving because of the duration, but at the same time you also have a greater chance for the torture. You know what I'm saying? It's like once all the smoke clear and all the dust settles on September 11th, it's like if you see the light of day, then 9 times out of 10 you made it. And on the other side is if you didn't, it's like you didn't have the suffering lingering months and months of suffering and torture. You know what I mean? So I mean it's good and bad on both sides. It's really hard to compare the two, but just me, oh man, I couldn't imagine those towers. I'm a little more familiar with hurricanes and floods and all that, and that's definitely a fucked up situation and the lawlessness that took place. But that to me, I feel like I would be a little more survivable in. But that September 11th, no man, like I wouldn't have had the calm. I wouldn't have had the thought processes to process that information. Like if you above that impact zone. Oh, I mean, I could. That's why I couldn't even bring that up into this. Cause like that, you can't even broach on that. Like to be inside a person, like all you did was go to work. All you did was go to work, man. You know what I mean? Now I did say this. You know what I mean? Like going forward in a situation like for something of that, scale. Hopefully, never ever see that again. But any building over like I say 100 stories or 75 to 80 stories. The upper floors should all have certain amounts of parachutes. Like just individual parachutes, just like you have fire extinguishers and shit in the corner. Just have some disposable parachutes just in case of emergency if it comes down to that. Because in actuality, in a building that big, it ain't really no rescue. It ain't really no putting no fire out. It ain't really no other solution in very, very dire circumstances other than you getting from up there to the ground. And they show in certain instances that steps is not always going to be a viable option, So all in all, to sum up what my answer is, I would be most scared of September 11th. I would be scared of Hurricane Katrina as well, but I feel like I would have a better chance of adapting to that and trying to actually like think out, because you would take it step by step. You know what I'm saying? First, let me make sure that I'm not drowning. Second, let me make sure that my people, you know what I'm saying? Like you can have that train of thought. Like if I'm in an office building, I look up and I see a plane hitting my building, I'm freaking the fuck out. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like just my panicking probably will kill me, you know what I'm saying? Then if I'm fucking 80 stories in the sky, and motherfuckers talking about stay put. Firefighters talking about me coming, and my common sense would it just I wouldn't know what to do, man. I would shut down. So that right there, just, you know what I'm saying, twisting the can out this can of fucking worms. That's gonna be season fucking 3, and we just getting started. Like I said, man, we gonna be pushing some buttons just to give y'all a little tidbit. We got the Beyonce versus Rihanna, Martin Luther King versus Malcolm X. We got all kinds of topics coming for that's really gonna make y'all think. We might hit them with the Usher versus Chris Brown. Heard some motherfuckers bringing it up, talking about like which one actually is, but we ain't gonna give out too many, you know what I'm saying? Just know we got a lot of topics coming that's really gonna push them buttons from y'all. But yeah, man, it's your boy 100K, this S.B.G network. We watching season 3 of Versus. We still here. See y'all next Friday, 8 o'clock sharp. Y'all.